exciting meeting tonight. We have our very own Central Oregon writer, Ellen Waterston, who's going to talk to us this evening and do some writing and writing prompts. I'm going to do a quick screen share here, and I'm going to just take us to our website and talk through that a little bit. So we've got, obviously, Ellen tonight. We have our writing events listed over here for the month. We are all the way up to the 13th, and we've got a few more coming, few more things coming through this month. Introduction to Self-Publishing Platforms. I think that's a COCC class. Irene and I are doing our writing salon this Saturday. There's a songwriters workshop up at COCC, a couple of author readings, narrative basics workshop, and that's mine, and it's at COCC, and it's close to full if you're interested in it. Intro to screenwriting, and Write Like a Dog, a couple other events up at Central Oregon Writers Guild. And then our May 11th meeting is going to be a publishing panel with Kim Cooper Findling, Tamara Marnell, Nicole Meyer, and Laura Stanfill. They're going to talk about different aspects of publishing, ranging from self-publishing to traditional publication. And then we have a workshop in May also with Kim Cooper Findling. And she's going to talk about navigating the world of book publishing. Our workshops are limited to 16 people, and I think this is close to half full already. So if you're interested, click on that there button. Members are $10 for workshops, and non-members are $25. And that's it for that. And we, as some of you recall, in our live meetings at the library, we were doing member sharing moments. So I want to reopen that as we hopefully move towards the thoughts of going to back in person, kind of get used to sharing and being in public. It's really easy to be on Zoom and just sort of sit back and watch. But so I want to open this up and see if people have news or accomplishments they want to share, announcements that they'd like to share, anything that's going on in your lives writing related. And I will start with an example here. I have submitted my novel to 140 agents, and I only have 31 rejections, which means I have 109 possibilities for publication or representation. So I'm pretty thrilled about that. All right. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute or throw some information in the chat, and I'm just going to let y'all go. Tell us about your lives.
This
Carolyn,
is Linda.
are you talking? Okay, there's
no,
Linda.
Linda is, since nobody else is. Hi. So unlike Mike, I think I only have 40 queries out for my novel, and plus some Alaska small prints and a contest. So I'm ever hopeful about that, but I know I need to send some more queries out. I'm part of a writers critique group that's an offshoot of the Central Oregon Writers Guild, Easy Writers, with Mary Krakow and Amanda and Annette. And we set some writing goals at the beginning of the year, and we're stumbling along toward them. But one of them is that we're doing some reading on craft books, and really liked Bird by Bird, and now we're going through Writing Down the Bones, which is a little dated, but it's interesting too. And it all talks in one way or the other about the importance of just writing. So even when I find I'm busy with other things, I read the books and I kick myself in the butt and try to do a little more writing. So that's it from Linda.
All right. Carolyn, I know that you got something going out there.
Oh, well, I'm not as far along as you all. I did finish another draft of a novel and got some, it's called In the Land of One Death. And it's, yeah, it's It's about an archaeologist who wants to document a site before it's destroyed by the rising waters from a dam, but all these people are trying to kill her. And anyway, so, but it's also about the stories that, it's about how people create reality on their own, you know, the sort of neuropsychological issue of how do we create our own worldview so that our character, our protagonist, keeps bumping up against all these totally different realities in this year in Mexico. So that's kind of really the subtext. And I'm reviewing some academic publications, pre-publication reviews, and submitted 2 academic articles, but for publication, but that's all boring now.
Well, and I know, Carolyn, you're in the beta reader stage, and I think that's a really important part of publishing, is to get your work out and have people look at it.
Yeah, the 2 people who have looked at it so far have both said they couldn't put it down.
That's great. Anybody else? Announcements?
I can go.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's not really exciting, but I have a novella that is in the beta reading stage, and I've decided to self-publish a series of novellas. I want to do both, so while those I'm self-publishing, I have a manuscript in around the 2nd draft that I'm going to be looking for representation for. So I thought this way I can dip my toe into both waters and see what happens. So hopefully I'm
great.
Be published by the summer.
All right. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh, someone else.
Yep.
Okay. This is Ginger talking. I was going to do this and I forgot. I was going to count up exactly how many items I had submitted since my last presentation, where I was telling everybody submit, 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 and I just forgot to add them up. But I will tell you, I've been just, you know, I had a 3-week vacation. Other than that, I've been going at it just about as strong as I always have. And I've had 3 poems published since November. So that's my story.
Yay. Congratulations.
Hey, honey, Penelope's had her hand up.
Sue? Oh, sorry. Penelope, go ahead, and then Sue.
This is my first time of doing anything with Central Oregon Writers Guild, so hello. It's good to find out about you. I'm not so much interested in publishing, although I have published in the past small articles, but what I'm in the midst of is reclaiming a relationship with poetry after my junior year in high school, which was decades and decades ago, when I arrived in class so thrilled to share what I discovered about the poem we had been assigned. And I enthusiastically raised my hand. I expressed what I discovered about the poem. And the teacher said, "Of course the poet didn't mean that."
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and I don't think I knew the F words very much at that point, but probably inside of me, I was very angry. How would you know what the poet meant? But it did have a devastating effect on my relationship with poetry. Even though I had given a reading at around the same time of E.E. Cummings' poems to the whole high school. This is all back in Ohio. And so lately, for the past few months, I have just absolutely been devouring poetry and reading the lives of poets and reading handbooks about poetry. And I'm bookmarking yesterday and tomorrow events with Krana Castlebaum. So there's, when I saw, I've heard Ellen speak before, and when I saw that was happening, that this was happening, I jumped in and I'm thrilled.
Great.
Yeah.
And Ellen will get your creative juices going tonight, I'm sure.
All right.
All right. And I have to just interject here really quickly. My English teacher in junior high said to me, maybe you should never write poetry, after I turned in what I thought was a beautiful poem. All right, Janet, or I'm sorry, Sue, you're next.
I just wanted to say hello to Carol Sesson and to thank Ellen for her recent column on aging. We used it as a prompt today in my writing group, and I think 4 of the 6 of us have been to some sort of workshops that Ellen has done. It was a great prompt to write about aging, and I will tell you that 2 people had what I think is the best writing they've ever done in response to your column and aging in general. It was very insightful and really brought us to a new level of friendship and writing. So thank you, Ellen.
Yeah, thank you. Who else has some news? Going once, going twice. All right, Mary, I'm going to pass it off to you. Mary is our featured reader coordinator with a beautiful new haircut, and she's going to introduce our featured reader.
Well, thank you, Mike, and welcome everybody. Irene Cooper is the author of Committal, a speculative bi-fi novel about family from Vegetarian Alcoholic Press and Spare Change poems. In 2020, she co-edited with Ellen Santasiero Placed, an Encyclopedia of Central Oregon, an anthology of Central Oregon writing. Poems, stories, and reviews appear in Denver Quarterly, The Feminist Wire, The Manifest Station, The Rumpus Phoebe, Witness, Voice Catcher, and elsewhere. Irene co-edits the Stay Project, co-facilitates Blank Pages workshops with Michael Cooper, teaches in community, and lives with her people and a corgi in Oregon. And you can find her at her website, which is www.irenecooperwrite.com. So welcome, Irene.
Thanks, Mary. And thank you, Central Oregon Writers Guild. We've all gotten kind of used to these Zoom meetings, but I'm looking forward to getting back into that library. There's nothing quite like an intermission with some cookies and some chit chat, but happy to be here. This book came out this month, and I'm very thrilled to say, so I'm going to read a few poems from that, and then I'm going to read a couple of things that I've been working on lately. So, at the shore, we see scarce evidence of us, opened bodies, deboned, and ocean stripped. Organs engage in the kind of raw melody you expect of cells free of their people suits. No secret tissue now, too hot to poke, with a found liver, with a length of carboned iris. Unmixed and strung like clean kidneys in sunlight, it's almost better than being drunk, this dissolution. Morsels for gulls served fresh on a frigid current of North Atlantic insult. It feels good to nourish something. You muck in the tide pools, fish out a heart-shaped rock, hand it to me. Sometimes in my perversity, I see our dead brother as a priest, see him peel back his black suit coat, release the button at his neck and take off his collar, lay it in a special bowl he keeps on his dresser. Vain about his feet, he'll have traded the ugly brogans for motorcycle boots, an homage to the hippie priest that took him and his buddies to see the summer of '42, back when a girl washing her hair was pornography enough. Shoes removed and down to his boxers now, hospital blue. He stands on his Jesus feet. Long bones and knuckles buckled with ache, encased in steaming argyle. I imagine our brother knows everything about sex from that movie, that day, as he accepts, when offered, a sip of water. Child shine, sunlight, the only sensible action to be reckless with soak. Fill every pore with honey, disinfectant. I spend our early money on research and development. Last night I dreamed of your death. You are big and the faults are mine. What chance and who gives? I leave everything to me, and can you forgive you? Be honest. Mistakes in no way are poetic. Our most prosaic practice makes perfect our scraps, our chicken skin, our late with a cutting remark. Brand us with one honest word. Come on, impress me. I am cracked plate, open-faced, fear serrated and tomato-fleshed with the easy beatings of the underfed. I am whisked off my pickles. Guilt spins me salt-beaded into my nightly must, my well done, my lean toward bitter. And suddenly, the hot swirl of you, char and blister, rustling up a brightness so sizzle as to skitter rancid shame and rue across its surface, distillate. And we are ancient eggs fermented to ripeness. We are vegetables in season, living mollusks on a knackered half shell, all the briny, sweet and sour of it. Mother is a verb. Doobie doobie do. The bee binds do to object C. So do can't do the doing. Buzz off, bee. We're busy here. Got to staunch the urging scream, muffle the bellies, knit the bones to fly true. A score and more to doobie doobie do the job, so be it. Undone, don't do, but to not be subject is the object. Apart from speech is due, and be is only the dream of her. Prop open the noun with a broom, free the chickens and shoot for the tree line. No apples in the pie, no gods. All right, that's that. I'm gonna screen share because hopefully in conversation with what I look forward to from Ellen, I'm gonna talk a little bit about form. If I can bring this up. Okay, so these poems, just playing a little bit around with the concrete. And these are sort of written in the last year during this quarantine time. I don't meditate, am not respirated, never run unless chased, and I'm never chased, and so rarely take note of my breath. As the miracle persists, quotidian, stressful to watch fish breathe in a tank, nude mechanics, mystery of gill, asthma, coma, plethora of childhood distress. I could be a better host. Aerobics, a song, breathy indication of capacity and aspiration, token thanks for bouncing back from all that freedom of choice and hubris, pink and springy as a fresh dime store sponge ball on a brick stoop, catching air. The poet posits Jesus was deliberate in his contradictions, set out to foster a kind of creative imagination in his followers, but we're more tender than smart. theoretical individualists who take kinder to a commandment than a concept, a mistake to believe we'd appreciate his God-given irony, ill-equipped as we are for the cosmic joke. Not even omnipotence can stop a flock once it gets tumbling downhill. Sweet Jesus, what can you expect of a people after they've suffered the locusts, the plagues, been flooded with such love? Not so crazy in form, but I like Louise Glick, epitaphs from her, 280. It does me no good to be good to me now. Violence has changed me. Nothing does but the wind. You insist on the skittish moon, a blanket of breathing dark on a night that passes as a film. I don't touch your cobbled body, except to swaddle it in scraps as you sleep in the cold grass, under a wind that carries everything in its pore. The tree, the streaky sky, the siren, and the large, lonesome truck. Wind carries the wild cold you lift your face to, and I see you in this darkness, if not through it. And I'm going to wrap it up with a little ekphrastic. So that was the prompt. Gnarl. Bare branches in a seasonless sky. Dead or asleep, the work of reach is a silent machine or an organism lying in wait, like those kangaroos that cease to gestate in drought. Some lucid escapist posts that poets alone read in their dreams. Is the text in color? That's another question. Incremental wood twists on itself like a dog, follows a scent long snuffed. Without foliage, the tree reveals the highway of its impulses, pulled now by the light, now by the nutrient. A sapped crack where the talons of the raptor rip the weathered crust to the green. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoever's married to that woman is lucky. All right. Our featured presenter tonight has been a guiding and supporting force in writing in Central Oregon for as long as I've been here, which is a long time. High Desert author and poet Ellen Waterston has published 4 poetry and 3 literary nonfiction titles, including her most recent Walking the High Desert, Encounters with Rural America Along the Oregon Desert Trail, University of Washington Press, 2020. Hotel Domilocos, Moonglade Press, 2017 is her most recent collection of poetry. She's founder of the Writing Ranch, which conducts retreats for writers, the Waterston Desert Writing Prize, recently adopted as a program of the High Desert Museum, and serves on the faculty of the Oregon State University's low-res MFA in creative writing, which is my, I went to that, and I actually kind of wish Ellen was there when I was there. I may have to go back. You can find her at writingranch.com or at the Waterston Desert Writing Prize.org. And without further ado, here is Ellen.
Here I am. I'm spotlighted. I'm gonna not spotlight myself because then I'm not seeing all of you, which I like better. Okay. Welcome everybody. And Mike, thank you ever so much. I think we're partners in our commitment to the literary arts in Central Oregon, this region, and really the state. Irene, thank you so much for your reading, and it really was terrific to hear, and also, is a perfect segue to what I'll be doing a little bit later on. So thank you for that. We didn't even rehearse. I just want to say hello to some Writing Ranch alums who are here, Ginger, Sue, Carol. It's just great to see you. Carol is down the street from me, but this is our up close and personal in quite a while. So, and kudos to Janet, Linda, Mike, Ginger, and Penelope. Welcome. Good job jumping in. And I liked your response to that teacher. Most of us curl our tail and run, but not you. So that's wonderful to hear that Central Oregon Writers Guild is thriving and so active and so busy. So the only other news on my end of things is, as Sue mentioned, this, I guess it's good news that I was asked to write a column on aging. I'll take it. And it's getting a lot of response. So there are quite a few of us. And those who don't think they're one of us, that's what I hope to disabuse them of, because we're all in this aging thing together, like it or not. And a couple of other quick things. If you kind of like the tone of what I offer tonight, it's a little teeny weeny taste of what I'll be doing on the fish trap faculty this summer, which alas has gone virtual for the second time, hopefully the last time. But a really awesome faculty, including our Oregon Poet Laureate, who will be coming via Zoom though to do a presentation soon in Bend. Frank X. Walker is the keynote and sort of anchor tenant. Anyway, just have a look if you're at all interested in any of the workshops that will be offered. And having been on that faculty last summer, I can say that if anybody managed to deliver despite Zoom, it was Fish Trap. It was a great event last summer, and I'm certain now with more practice, it will be this summer as well. And I won't read it to you tonight, but I have a poem that was sort of commissioned by the Deschutes River Conservancy's fundraiser on April 22nd. You might just decide whether or not to sign up for that event. Obviously, it's just an RSVP kind of a thing. There'll be all sorts of nonsense going on in association with that Riverfest, as it's called. But it's an activist poem. It was hard for me to find too much good to say about what's going on with our water situation. So that's April 22, and Fish Trap is in July. So as to tonight's discussion, and I'm going to keep my eye on the time. I think what I gather is we're about a 40-minute tolerance. Is that about right, Mike? Yep, thumbs up. Okay. So my friend and fellow poet and Bend resident, Carol Barrett, I hope I can find it now, but anyway, she wrote a collection of short nonfiction prose pieces titled Pansies. Most were not a page long. And it was a finalist in 2020 for the Oregon Book Award. They all related to her, or do relate to her experience with an apostolic community earlier in her life, and so have a common theme, as poetry collections often do, as well as verse novels, memoirs, linked narrative, nonfiction, and fiction. But here's the thing. She wrote these pieces as poems. She labored over them as poems, and then, for whatever reason, decided to cast them out into the world to prospective publishers, etc., as short essays, as nonfiction. So the theme of what I'm going to talk to you all about tonight is permission, full permission. That as writers, you know, if you feel as though you're wearing any sort of blinders, any sort of ought tos about how it's going to appear on the page, how it ought to appear on the page, you know, what, as I said in the description of this little event, is the tail wagging the dog or vice versa? And actually, which is the dog and which is the tail? What you want to write and the form you're going to choose to write it in. Carol, I thought, really was magnificently, as the operative word for COVID, she pivoted beautifully. She decided the invitation was different, that the knocking on her door from those pieces of work were not what she thought. They wanted to be in this nonfiction form, and she was rewarded for that experiment. And I'm sort of giving you a short little book list here. I'm not going to be reading from all of these references. For example, if you read Sherman Alexie's What I've Stolen, What I've Earned, or his more recent memoir, You Don't Have to Say You Love Me, about the impact on him of his mother's death, you'll be struck by how it feels as though certain emotions, recollections, scenes, and settings seem to have insisted on showing up on the page in a certain way, that he, the author, really was at the mercy of how to move that emotion forward onto the page. In some cases, it's a poem. In some cases, it's a 2-line aside constituting an entire chapter. There's a free interpretation of the sonnet, well, of a haiku, and just about everything. When Sherman Alexie picks up the pen and approaches the page, he keeps his ear to the shell to listen to what that writing is asking of him, as does Brian Doyle. I don't know if any of you have embraced his wonderful book, and that's what happens. It's just, you feel like you're in an embrace. One Long River of Song. He was with University of Portland until his death, the editor of their wonderful journal. And this is a collection of essays, but when you look at it, please remark on the freedom he takes. Some of the essays are completely unpunctuated. Some take up barely a page. Some take many pages. Some involve research. Some don't. Some are full of sort of anecdotal dialogue and kind of a very fresh, matter-of-fact presence to them. So I encourage you to take a look at this wide variety of forms, this very open invitation. Kim Stafford in 100 Tricks Every Boy Can Do, his effort to understand his brother's suicide, he resolved in the mosaic form, perfect for what he was trying to do, to piece together, to capture the fireflies of sort of the disparate memories and recollections, regrets and reflections that he could manage to trap onto the page. So that in that sense, it was an excellent reflection of what was trying to be said. So you see kind of where I'm going. So though Amanda Gorman's inaugural poem that we're all pretty familiar with by now, The Hill We Climb, though it's displayed on a page as a single poem, within that poem, the author swings from one tone to another, from pure narrative such as, quote, where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president only to find herself reciting for one, unquote. Very sort of straight up narrative nonfiction prose. To classic spoken word style, rhyming justice with just us, or we knew it, we do it, or dare it, inherit, repair it. Okay, so that's where that drum beat, that rhythm that was very, very evident in her delivery starts to anchor itself in that kind of spoken word rhyme scheme and language manipulation, to the more traditional end rhyme and an even number of I ams. Victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made, that is the promised blade, right? So you name it, it's there. And she stitches this together, as you probably heard her do, with a strong, strong rhythmic beat, as I mentioned, characteristic of spoken word or slam, and which Gorman aced thanks to the passion of her delivery. So don't ever forget that reading your work, performing your work is as important as writing it in some respects. We just heard from Irene. You can hear the passion behind the word. You can hear her respect for each word choice. You can feel the emotion of the writer as they deliver a piece. And we impose our own feelings in that regard when we're reading it off the page. So it's a great honor and privilege to hear it from the writer, whether it's long form prose or not. And it's an important piece, important element of offering your work to others. But Gorman also succeeded because of other things that we can consider when we move into this prompt shortly, which is the use of repetition, refrain, reversal, this but not that. She had a lot of that. We were this, now we're this, or we don't want to be that, or I don't know, but you, I'm sure, can access the poem as well as I did. It's everywhere, including now in special little published books. And then my last example is a woman, a poet friend who lives in New Hampshire, who responded to the news of my writing a column on aging. And just a little background for the poem. She is a breast cancer survivor, and her husband has outrun multiple heart issues over the course of their very long marriage, and now has an ICD implant. It struck me in reading this, it really bowled me over, this poem, that the poem's message of true love, really maybe what love truly is, and a love of life and one another demanded, I don't know if you'll agree, the short lines, I can show you the format here, demanded the short lines that she, so you can see, essentially short lines, that she as a writer felt this message she wanted to deliver insisted on, and she respected that request. And so I feel we're in service to our writing, not the other way around. We really are in service to it. And the best feeling is sort of the best relationship when both the writing and the writer are focused on the same point on the horizon. It's better than any drug. Her poem's form, to me, captures the urgency she feels and wants to share. The urgency of life, the precious nature of every moment, of moments of intimacy in particular. So let me just read her poem. And now that we're some minutes in, I'll then move to the prompt that I wanted to do with all of you this evening. And if there's time, we'll hear from all of you an example of your response to the prompt. And if there's still time, I'll offer you a fresh poem, very fresh poem of my own. So this is titled by my friend Mary Anchor. This is titled Love in the Time of Aging. The last time we turned to each other, remember? Our scars sensitive, slowly igniting the long history of our intensity. We turn again, no urgency in our dark communion. You with your ICD hidden but hard beneath your collarbone against my pillowy cheek. Me with no breasts, our rib cages skin to skin. With slow lips we sink whispering in warm waters, pulled into the cave of the rolling wave behind us and ahead, carrying our first time, all our millions of times in its curve, curling into that last time. I don't know about you, but that one got me. Yeah. I just, anyway. So we're just so lucky to be surrounded with so much writing and so much passion and so much great writing and so much opportunity, especially here in Central Oregon. So I hope my little discourse here underscores what I celebrate is the abundant permission writers have and seem to be more fully embracing. I mean, probably we've always had it, but we're more fully embracing both the elasticity of language and of form. And so I would just suggest that in your first drafts, let the emotion guide it, guide the form, the spacing, the word choices themselves. Just be bold, see what shows up. Be free with your brush strokes. An artist friend of mine said, oh, you see that painting over there? That painter is still, is a little afraid of the brush stroke, a little afraid of the color. And many of us, myself included, get that way in our writing, especially if we think we're onto something. We get all sort of tight and, oh my God, I don't want to let this go. So yeah, just be free with your color, your brush strokes, your paint at first, and then something will bubble to the surface that will really be the core and the nub. So those of you who've been in my workshops know that this prompt is one of my favorites. I've adapted it a little to this circumstance, but it's a favorite way that I use really a lot to remind myself as a writer of this freedom and to also kind of, I don't know, stick me in the butt when I'm stuck. It really unsticks me every single time. And I have to attribute it to a poet friend of mine who has only been published by BOA. So those of us who know, we're like, oh my God. She uses this prompt regularly as well. So I'm hopeful we'll have some time to share a few of your responses before we sign off. But I'd like you, I'm trust as writers that you have in hand right there, a pencil or a pen and a little piece of paper. Very good. And I'm going to give you some lines to write down right underneath each other, each on their own line. Ready? The first one is, and by the way, these are all from the authors I just referenced. So you're getting a little taste of a reading from each of them. Number one, the loss we carry, a sea, as in ocean, a sea we must wade. That's the first line. Second line, you are a bar fight spilling into the streets at noon. Let me know if I'm going too fast. The third, birds are how air answers questions. The fourth, when night comes, those velvet hearts prepare to propagate. Only two more. Number five, he was dead, blood, pistol, silence. And last of all, the river only says things once. Okay, so you now have 6 lines from 6 different writers, poets, and I'd like you, without thinking much about it, just to choose 3 of them. Just put a little check by 3 of them. And then we're going to take maybe 5 minutes, that's it. And you're going to put your ear to the shell of those 3 lines. What combination are they inviting? What little emotion or story or poem do they want you to discover within them? You can use only 2 words from all 3. You can create refrains, you can flip them, you can cut them in half, you can exchange words, you can insert your own language, please do. You can just riff off one little phrase that just takes you somewhere, takes you to a memory, takes you to an imagined future. So have your way with the 3 lines you choose. Do not overthink it. The whole point of writing prompts is to ambush what we think we ought to be writing. So forget about it. Just listen to these lines and just whatever, right? There's no right answer. No WRITE. Never mind. You've heard the terrible pun, metaphors be with you. Metaphors be with you. Metaphors be with you. Oh, never mind. Anyway, okay. So I'm looking at my handy dandy Timex watch, which I love because I can read the numbers, but it's so not classy because the tick is the loudest thing in the room. But I'm watching it. You got 5 minutes. And if you need to go turn your video off for a second so we're not all staring at each other, fine. We'll come back in 5. Another minute. Okay. Hopefully it's hard for you to stop. That means you're on to something that you can keep working on later. While you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's, I'll read you the whole little poem by Carol Barrett, or it wasn't, sorry, it's not a poem, it's a nonfiction short essay, the title poem for the book, Pansies. And I just ask you to listen for the fact that it works so well as sort of narrative nonfiction as opposed to a poem. But then we can ask that question about so many things if you pull them apart or put them together. So really, the question is, where does the fur end and the cat begins on so many of these distinctions? And maybe it's just so the Association of Writing Professionals and Programs can figure out what to call what. But this, her piece is as follows: plain folks live in my town. Even our food is plain: corn on the cob, drumsticks, biscuits with jam, apostolics, cotton to what is plain. The plain truth is, God rewards the faithful with a bumper crop, blonde and blue-eyed, rosy-cheeked. They border a man's table like pansies. After supper, those who have come of age go outside for a smoke. Pansies are a persistent breed. They take to the same soil year after year. You rarely find an aberration, a cast-off, a hybrid, wild with defiance. They never crowd each other for the light. When night comes, those velvet hearts prepare to propagate. Casts a different light on that line, doesn't it just? Okay, any candidates? To what I would ask you to do is to read the first 3 lines that you chose and then what you did with them. Mary.
Okay, the lines that I chose were: you are a bar fight spilling into the street at noon. He was dead, blood, pistol silence. The river only says things once. I whisper, Swish, burble, swirl. The river carries my troubles away, far away, gone. You are a bar fight spilling into the streets at noon when shoppers dart and dodge to avoid your chaos, eternal chaos. The pistol clapped like thunder, and you lay dead, crimson blooms across your chest. I whisper my troubles, swish, burble, swirl. The river carries them away, far away, gone.
Wow. Yes.
Thank you.
And interesting, again, the repetition of swish, swish, burble, swirl, front and end, and how after the really the tragic event of this little piece, they for some reason were a lot less friendly. I'm now associating them a bit with blood, not just with water. So particularly the burble, but I loved the alliteration, swish, swirl, dart, dodge, and the sounds of clapped, all of it. So great instinct for noise making good trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
Anyone else?
I can go. I'm inspired to go because I used the same 3 sentences as Mary. But I just kind of played around with the words that were already there. So I said, you are a river filling the streets with blood. At noon, he was dead. The pistol only says things once. Silence.
Very cool. And how fun to see those 2 approaches side by side and to watch the imaginative process at work, working with the very same ingredients. I mean, each of us is our own snowflake, obviously, distinct and individual, and how we receive experience is equally as individual. And so we cannot ever think to ourselves, we have nothing to say about anything, because we're the only one who has that particular thing to say about it. So thank you, Janet. Any others? Trish. Except you're muted. Oh, good.
Yeah, no, I unmuted. My dog is barking again. I'm ignoring her. So I just took parts. I used the loss we carry, a sea we must wade, because I lost my dad a few months ago. You are a bar fight spilling into the streets at noon. I only use some of the words. And when night comes, those velvet hearts prepare to propagate, which I loved how the poet actually, or the writer actually used that, which mine is not that artistic. Okay. I have the loss we must carry, a sea we must wade, spilling into the streets, no way around, only through. Velvet hearts hardened, careful, vulnerable for a time. Adjustment, acceptance comes in its own time, no shortcuts, until we learn to live again with similar energy, though seasoned. A different flavor to life evolves, and hopefully we move on.
So true. When one spice in our life is removed, it definitely leaves us a life that has a different flavor, most definitely. That's really a very sweet tribute that came out of nowhere with 3 random lines.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how this little prompt works. And by the way, you can pull lines out of news headlines, directions for opening the toothpaste box. I mean, I don't know. You can, if you want an inspiration to get funny, just, look up in Golf Magazine how to improve your golf swing. And, I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can get so funny reading.
I bet. That is funny.
But just use this prompt to help you in whatever direction you're wanting to go. Mike, how much more time do we have?
As we have plenty of time. Natalie wanted to go next.
Goody.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Ellen. Great. All right. So the 3 lines that I chose were, when night comes, those velvet hearts prepare to propagate. He was dead, blood, pistol, silence. The river only says things once. He was dead, blood, silence. The velvet heart inside him prepares to say one thing once. Silence, silence, more blood. Enough blood for a river. It has been said. It has been done.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, the strength of repetition, right? It's just that Baptist sermon. There's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of power in carefully choosing what it is that's repeated, driving the image home and driving the emotion home. So thank you so much, Natalie.
Of course, thank you.
Bruce.
So I chose as many of the same ones that everybody else did: the bar fight, the the blood and the pistol, and the river.
What's with you people? I'm sorry.
Violence. Blasted out the door, carried by the violence, fueled by liquor and the betrayal of velvet hearts. There's no silence. There's the explosion of breath and cuss words. There's no taking back. The flow is powerful, reactively powerful. Over and over I tumble, a white water rapid spilling out into the dusty flow of the street.
Oh. Wow. So you just owned it. I mean, you took the notion of silence and said there was none. I mean, you just extracted from these lines and flipped them around to your will, to your scene, to your setting, to your bar brawl. It's wonderful. I mean, not that bar brawls are necessarily wonderful, but they have their good elements, actually.
Well, they have their beauty, I guess.
They do. I spent some years ranching north of Brothers, and anytime there was a dance at the Paulina Community Hall, some guys would just stand by the door and just deliver a punch just to get something going. Anyway, I just can't get away with that anymore. But
Yoo-hoo. I'll say
Carol, wonderful.
Okay. I've got, I don't see my picture though. Where's my picture?
You don't see yourself on the screen?
No.
I do. I see you.
We see you, Carol.
Okay, well, I'm glad somebody can. Anyway, I chose 2, the loss we carry, a sea we must wade, and the river only says things once, okay? Life's river moves so fast, it only passes once. Loss fills the stream I have waded. Now nothing lies ahead. Darkness, stillness, death pervades. The end.
The end. Well, that poem is about the end of one thing, perhaps, but none of us have the ability to reckon what is in the darkness. So, hey.
Well, you know, at 91, you think a lot about death.
Yeah. Yeah.
It comes too soon.
Exactly. Exactly. And the notion that time flies and we all sort of poo-poo until we're like, whoa, they had a point.
Yeah, I know. Suddenly the end is near.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. It's so nice to see you. Penelope.
The 3 that I chose, birds are how air answers questions. When night comes, those velvet hearts prepare to propagate, and the river only says things once. Velvet hearts float on river currents, answering questions in my own velvet heart. Birds prepare to propagate, and my heart sings their songs too. Lost in the winds of time, my velvet heart remembers again and again and again. Who are you, little eye? The river answers again and again. Grateful I am. The river does not say things only once.
Oh, nice. So that's that lulling us into believing the first statement, only for you to show us at the end that it just ain't so. And the repetition of Velvet Heart again, that it stitches it, and you have a sort of different angle of light on it each time. Little eye, yeah, that's a sweet start. That's a fine little piece. Thank you.
I teared up at the end.
Yeah, you're onto something. You're onto something. Yeah, you can see how useful this is, how ridiculously useful it is to just select very, very different authors, very different sources, very different styles, very different perspectives, whether it's from poetry, whatever. But if you just listen to them, they'll mine something inside you. Something, they attach to something inside you. And yeah, I mean, whole short stories can result. Whole murder mysteries on Mount Bachelor might result. Now, who would that be about? Author Ted Hayes sitting here tonight. So anybody else?
I'll go.
Great.
But I'm picking the same three that Mary and Janet picked. You are a bar fight spilling into the streets at noon. He was dead, blood, pistol, silence, and the river only says things once. And I just basically rearranged some of the words. He was a bar fight interrupted by a sheriff's pistol. Anger silenced before blood flowed like a river. Thank God he's dead and the Deschutes won't tell his tale again.
Well, now that was done with dispatch. Sorry about your luck, dude. Nice.
Too many Westerns. Been watching too many Westerns.
But it's a wonderful genre, and it's muscular, and it's kind of it's this way or that way or the highway. So you captured that. You absolutely captured it. Linda? Yeah.
Okay, so if I can read my handwriting, I picked The Loss We Carry, A Sea We Must Wade, Birds Are How Air Answers Questions, and The River Only Says Things Once. The river only says things once and then rushes on, a different voice, a different wisdom every single time. The sea, receptacle of all our rivers, of all our tears, distilling salt from sorrow. Only the wind knows, but we do not speak breeze. Instead, we watch the birds translate, the doves at dawn, the scrappy seagulls, the predatory owl. To each of us, they speak, their song drowned out by waves, by wind and wild.
I want to learn how to speak breeze so bad. That's a beautiful piece.
Thank you.
There's sea, salt, speak, breeze. There's some interesting sort of assonance, vowel work in there. Your instinct for that, for the sound work, is strong. So, and really supports the piece. speak to breeze, see, right. So you're setting us up for that wonderful line. I do not speak breeze. We need to learn to speak breeze, man. If we're gonna have rivers and birds and every darn thing else. One more, Mike, time for one more? Okay, who is it? Oh my gosh, here's Carol Barrett, the very one that I've been teaching from. Just signed in. But she's not connected to audio yet. So yeah, Carol, I just finished teaching your Pansies poem. You're on mute. Well, Carol, you're still on mute. I cannot hear you.
Okay.
There.
Sorry.
Anyhow, I just wanted to say that we just did, I just read Pansies.
Oh.
And we did a prompt that included when night comes, those velvet hearts prepare to propagate. And who should show up but the author herself? So now
never. So sorry.
I'm waiting for one last reader to close out our meeting here.
Thank you.
Okay, be like that. I just want to acknowledge the magic of what we just did, how simple it is, how much fun it is, how much fun being word rights is. And I thank you for your time. I think our time is up. I'll hope our paths cross on pages soon again, and here and elsewhere. Thanks again so much to Mike, to Irene for her reading, to all of you for your readings, and to the Central Oregon Writers Guild for inviting me to be part of your gathering tonight. And again, abrazos to my Writing Ranch alums. I hope you're getting my newsletter so you can see that I've changed the Todos Santos workshop, not once, not twice, but 3 times now, thanks to COVID. But we've moved it all the way into February 22. So I give up. I'm succumbing to COVID reluctantly. Anyhow, if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to. Oh, help. There are some things in chat. Am I supposed to look at that? Probably. Oh, wasn't she going to read something of hers? I sure can if we have time.
Yeah, Ellen, we can kind of aim for 7 o'clock. See, we got a good 17 minutes here.
Oh, okay.
If you want to read.
Yes. Okay, thumbs up. The choices are a COVID poem or a poem that's rooted in where I grew up on Buzzards Bay in New England. So everybody who wants a COVID poem, thumbs up. 1. Guess what? We're going to Buzzards Bay. We've had enough of it, haven't we? Here it is. It's new. Carol Barrett and I are in a poetry group together. So she has heard this poem and in a draft form, and I'm embarrassed to say it's still in a draft form. But here we go. Just to show you, you go ahead and read when it's in a draft form. No fear. This is titled Widow's Walk. You all know what that is, those on the roof of houses looking over the ocean in case your whale killer wasn't going to come home. She ghosts into the harbor, the day cold moleskin gray, the bay all hers, emptied of yachts waiting out winter on cradles inside the shuttered boatyard. A high-sided regal sloop, this one, Her gunmetal gray hull perfectly mimics the water's inky hue. How neatly she slices through the waves, no harbor jumper, she no guncoaler, no day tripper, lithe, elegant, clearly this slender queen is rigged for self-sailing, self-winding winches, roller furling, go ashore dinghy inverted amidships. There's no question she's headed for blue water adventures, adventures too broad a reach for me now. The captain, cloaked in a billowing black poncho, materializes like a specter from below, lowers the tender into the slate water, rows to the town wharf and back, climbs out with a grocery sack, secures the dinghy, descends into the galley. Whoever it is seems to prefer being alone, a skill I now need to learn. That night, no stern or masthead running lights, no sign of light or life at all, pitch on black, like the great blue heron that disappears into the dark. I'm desperate to know her name, but the harbor breeze is northerly. Her stern is never to me. I've grown attached to this sleek stranger and her solo sailor. I want to stow away or at least find an answer to what is and isn't out of my question now. Bereft, I can but wave when she weighs anchor. She motors past the first bell, then lets out her sails, Genoa and Maine. A downwind fills her wing on wing of white, speeds her away, leaving me alone to claim what I can of what I came for, when my sails more full, when not even the sky was a limit, when I knew every question had an answer. It's 3 years to the day you died. It's not out of the question. The ghost ship spirited you back to remind that time and tide wait for no one. Thank you very much, all of you.
So if folks have questions for Ellen, shout them out or put them in the chat. Raise your hand. Linda has one.
Shout it out.
Remember to unmute, Linda.
I know, I can't shout it out till I unmute. So, you know, you've talked a lot about form, and I understand it really adds to poetry a lot of times. But I read a novel recently, and he tried to see, I guess, how long he could go without punctuating his sentence. And for the first paragraph, I thought, oh, this is really interesting. Went on a page, it went on 2 pages. It was all one sentence still, 3 pages, and I think it was 4 pages, and I lost interest. It was too hard to follow. It was, you know, I thought self-indulgent. I would have preferred, if he had something to say, to use a little more standard punctuation. So to me, it's sometimes like modern art where it's just doing it for the sake of doing it. But how do you feel about that? And it was a distraction and not adding to it like the poems you've showed us. I thought the shapes and all added to what the poem was trying to say, but in narrative, I thought it distracted from it.
And it's tricky in narrative. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's sort of what we say when something throws you off the page, a line, a chapter, a character, and that style, that technique was a little bit too self-aware, it sounds like. And it was taking too much of your attention, and it wasn't keeping you in the story itself. I was recently asked to proofread a novel by a friend in Bend who incorporates the footnotes into the story. And at first I was very, very resistant to take that seriously. I mean, it's a very strange science fiction and sort of artificial intelligence and all this stuff. And frankly, it worked. By the time I'd finished reading the manuscript, I felt like somebody had put a chip in me, right? I mean, it was like, so in that case, something that was a little unwieldy turned out to serve, in my opinion anyway, the telling of the story. But yes, you're the litmus for that. And I would guess that was just a lot of heavy lifting. And I assume no caps or anything. No.
Well, yeah, the cap at the beginning of the sentence and the period at the end, 4 pages later.
Yeah.
A few commas in there. I mean, so we have all read Faulkner, and his long sentences are beautiful. But yeah, I didn't appreciate this in prose.
If any of you want to see an example, again, a wonderful local poet, Kay Cuck, she did a collection of poetry about Venice, and each poem is a single sentence. And that doesn't mean they're short, and it does not mean they are self-aware and cumbersome. It's just a fine, fine collection, sort of a verse novel in a sense. You learn a ton of history, and I recommend it. It's available at local bookstores and online.
Okay, thank you.
Ellie?
Yeah.
Would you say that the form comes before the poem is written, or is it something that materializes during the process of writing the poem?
Well, I'm scratching my head and rubbing my stomach about this, or patting my head, or whatever the heck we do. Because, I felt that as I read Kim Stafford's book, or Sherman Alexie's memoir, or his things I've earned, things I've stolen, whatever it was, it felt like they were at the mercy of the telling, kind of. For Kim, just as he started to put these memories down, then this mosaic emerged, and then he surrendered to that, and then the form, then he had his form. So I think, I don't know how to explain my sense of how that happens. And I'm sure some of you who have written long form prose, etc., have your own answers. But I do think that if the form in our head that we bring to the project is limiting in any way to the telling, to the character, to the full embrace of the story, then we have to examine how we can push the edges a bit. Right. And so, Ginger, with your example of the bar brawl, if that were a whole fiction piece, you might want to have some good, healthy spaces between lines, if not paragraphs, just to let people kind of marinate in this fight. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to mean that fiction includes poetry and it's all over the place and you read the last page first and the second page fifth, and no, but it does mean you can manipulate the energy on the page, kind of, both in the writing, both in the word choices, all of that, but also visually. Yeah, again, it's that notion of not being afraid of applying the paint, just experimenting. If you don't like it, you can change it.
Also, you had a couple of shape poems.
Those were from Irene.
I'm sorry, those are from Irene. So maybe I should be asking her this, but I see these every once in a while, and I just wonder whether the person started out thinking they were going to create a shape and then made a form, created a poem to fit that shape, or whether they were writing a poem and the shape sort of evolved,
Yeah,
I guess that's what I meant by form.
Has Irene signed off?
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
I would say, Ginger, the idea to I like the idea of concrete poetry. I've used it a lot as prompts in workshops, more as a generative form. But I think when these poems took shape, they had other forms before, so it's a little bit of a revision process that moves toward another way to support the poem, so that the context and the form are sort of working together, and also a little bit playful, right? Like once you start moving your words around, they're not quite so sacred, and you can just let go of the reader obligation a little bit. Not be thinking of the reader in that moment, which I'm sure you get all over the place, but also just open up the possibilities. It doesn't always work. But when it does work, you know, I mean, the poems that I read that were in form had been in prose form, had been in couplets, had been in other forms. And then, you know, it just seemed to be fun and to make sense to shape them a little bit. And there are plenty of poets. Douglas Kearney just came out with a book that he does a lot of very wild across the page shaping. So it looks like noise, you know, and he still manages to read them, which is kind of amazing. But.
Well, and the other great way to find out what words make good and bad bedfellows is to take on a really tough poetry form, such as sestina or something, and then you're sort of forced to put words next to each other. You come up with an idea, and then you got to wrangle with it, and it's kind of delightful too. But again, that's for those who need to get out more often, like me.
Other questions for Ellen? Wild praise for Ellen. So we can take your unmute yourself and we'll clap so that she can actually hear it, because we're so silent in the.
Yes, thank you.
Here we go. Yay! Thank you.
Look at, we're seals.
Yeah, right.
I almost didn't come because I had to be late, and I'm so glad I came, because just even catching the end, Ellen, I really enjoyed it. So thanks.
Thanks, Trish. I'm glad you were here. Really, it's just a lot of fun. It really is.
Is there time to hear the COVID poem?
Well, if
yes.
oh gosh, okay. So
COVID would love to have a little poetry dust sprinkled on it.
Okay, well, I seem to be in this sort of, I don't know, ballad. It's not a ballad. Epic. It's not epic, but it's just this kind of weird thing going on with my poetry lately. So, but this is another example of it. Oh wait, let me make sure I have one I want. So it's titled Geisterspiel, which is German for a ghost game when you play to an empty stadium. Okay? Which has been happening during COVID, but it just struck me. Here we go. Now, when I talk to myself in the grocery store, no one can tell unless they notice the cloth spinnaker that covers my mouth. It fills and empties as I mutter one way only down the aisle, emptying shelves of essentials like freeze-dried pangolin scales. Just kidding. I know someone who ends every sentence with just kidding. Never fear. Fear is still my binky. I wrap it around me at night. Clutch its frayed edges. But enough about night. I know how much you want to hear about my morning. I'm briefly my best company. Lucky because as of recently, I'm my only company. I think about maybe a kitten or puppy. I think about lots of things when I'm not binging on camper van videos. Time hangs in the air like the smell of coffee, soggy Cheerios. I make a plan to fool the day into thinking it needs me. I start with, I want. I want out, I want in, I want through, I want more and less, always and never. I wave my mouse across the pad like a scepter. Get me this and fast. The delivery man, he's got the life. His work is essential. He goes places, interfaces. Here he comes with a box of non-essentials from China. Faux wicker chairs plus a table. I unbubble, unstyro, unstrap. Finally, I'm ready for partial assembly. Maybe that explains it. I never went for full. Just kidding. You knew I'd say that. A final check to make sure the carton is empty. Ixnay, a stowaway from its home in Wuhan. The spider belays nonchalantly down the cardboard face, lands for the first time on American soil, plants a small flag of pestilence, then proceeds to ravel its web plans of attack. The new outdoor table and chairs are arranged on the deck. I set 6 plates, glasses, and blank place cards. I dress up in a white sheet with eye and mouth holes for my own private Geisterspiel. I say good evening to no one, read aloud, strum my ukulele, then play the applause track on high volume. To continue, press 1. To continue, press 1. Anyone, any damn one.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you all for indulging me. Okay, hope to see you all again.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much, Ellen, for being here. Thanks for everything you've done and are doing for Central Oregon Writers. And great to see you all. And we'll see you in a month. And keep writing. All right. Thanks.
Thanks,
And
Mike.
thanks to Paige from the library for setting this up for us.